Hi, Girl Scouts. So we'll get started. And I just wanted to say it's great for you to come to Inspiring Futures. And I am Katie Herstein, and I'm the Program and Events Manager at Girl Scouts of Colorado. And in my job, I get to be pretty lucky that I'm the one that gets to introduce guests of our Inspiring Futures to you as Girl Scouts. And so they can talk about their professions and you can probably see yourself into your inspired future. So we have a really great partner for this Inspired Futures series, and they are College Invest. And I have a presentation from their CEO. And so I'm going to run that now. And you can hear from her and hear about Inspiring Futures.
Hi, I'm Angela Beyer, CEO of College Invest, and welcome to this episode of Inspiring Futures. Through Girl Scouts, you've learned that if you can dream it, you can do it. And here at College Invest, Colorado's education savings program, we help you get there. And you're never too young to begin to imagine your inspired future. So how will you impact this world? Will you run your own business, invent a new technology, or maybe even discover a life-saving cure? But wherever your inspiration takes you, a College Invest savings plan can help make your dreams a reality. Now, prepare to be inspired.
Great. So, and on to some housekeeping things. And so basically, I just want to let you know that we'll be recording some of this session, but we would love for you to share your video and chat with us. And the recording, when it goes on to YouTube, we'll block out Girl Scouts faces. So just for safety purposes, it won't be up there. And College Invest, basically being a key sponsor of Inspiring Futures, they're a college savings plan. And so caregivers and parents can put money into their college savings plan, and the money grows tax-free and can be used for educational purposes past high school. So for colleges across the country, trade schools, apprenticeship programs, and basically anything that you feel inspired that you'd like to do for further education. So I actually started a College Invest savings plan for my girls when we moved to Colorado about 10 years ago, and I now have a daughter going off to college next year. So we feel very lucky actually that we saved for her college future. So there'll be information more about College Invest that going out in an email to caregivers and things after this. But we thank them as being our sponsors. So next up is our Girl Scout promise and our Girl Scout law. So if you want to, you can unmute yourself and join in with me, or you can just mute yourself and do it along at home. But I'll start. On my honor, I will try to serve God and my country and help people at all times to live by the Girl Scout law. I do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, responsible for what I say and do, and to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout. My Girl Scout troops love that last line, and they always say it really loud. It's kind of fun. So next up, I want to introduce our guests. We've got some wonderful women from Museum of Flight in Washington State, and they're joining us today to talk about life at a museum and what it's like to work there, their educational pathways that got them there, and just all the fun stuff that's just a part of their everydays. So I'm going to let them take it from here.
Thank you, Katie. I will start. My name's Emily, and I am one of the many people in our education department. And I had the honor of bringing these wonderful women into this event with me to show you a little bit about what we got going on. So as Katie mentioned, we are the Museum of Flight in Seattle, Washington. Our museum is really amazing in that we have a front row seat to an actual airfield that is constantly working, airplanes constantly taking off. And our museum really, our collection focuses on aviation and aerospace, but we have a lot of stuff. And with that in mind, I'm going to pass it over to Amy Heidrick, who is our Director of Collections. And we'll see what she has going on.
Hello. Oh, I'm going to apologize because I have a barking dog in the background. So that's always fun. That's if you pause for just a moment. Virtual presentations, you never know what you're going to get. So I apologize for my barking dog. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can share some images with everyone. And if I apologize, here we go. All right, can I get a thumbs up that you can see it? Has my name? All right. So yes, so Emily said, my name is Amy Heidrick. I am the Director of Collections at the Museum of Flight. And so I'm going to start right off by explaining what the heck Director of Collections means, because that's not a job title that you hear very often. I know that. I spend a lot of time explaining what I do to people. But I love explaining what I do because I really, really love my job. So as a Director of Collections, I'm in charge of the museum staff who care for and protect the museum's collection of artifacts and archival materials, library books. We also manage our research center and our oral history program. So my job is really fun because we get to play with all of the stuff in the collection. We get to take care of it. We get to research it. We get to make sure that we can share it with people through our exhibits, online through digital resources, and that we make it available to a broad audience. And that is what I love about my job, is that we get to really be there front and center with the museum's collection. So just a little bit quickly about our museum, since I don't know if anyone has had a chance to visit Seattle and visit our museum. I certainly hope so. But we're one of the largest air and space museums in the country after the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. So we have a number of galleries. And as Emily said, we're right on Boeing Field, one of the oldest airfields in the country. And we've got a number of planes, including we've got spacecraft, we've got World War I airplanes, we've got a lot of Boeing aircraft, sort of runs the whole history of aviation and space. We've also got the Boeing Red Barn, which you can see here in one of these pictures. That's the original manufacturing plant for the Boeing aircraft company. So that building was used starting in 1916, and it's actually the largest artifact in our museum's collection. So just a quick overview of our collection and what I'm responsible for taking care of. We've got 150 aircraft and spacecraft. We've got about 30,000 other objects. So that's everything that you can imagine. We've got pilots' uniforms, we've got flight attendant uniforms, other sorts of flight suits and clothing, aircraft parts, aircraft models, all kinds of tools related to aviation. Then we've also got a lot of really fun stuff related to commercial aviation. So dishes that might have been used on airplanes, tickets, brochures, those sorts of things. And then we've also got a really extensive library and archives collection. So library materials, just like what you might imagine, magazines and books, but we also have a lot of archival materials. So that's not always a term that's familiar to everyone, but we have a lot of paper-based materials. So that's things like photographs, letters, logbooks, blueprints, maps, that sort of thing. And we've got a lot. We've got about 10,000 cubic feet of materials in our archives. So we have a really, really, really big collection, which makes my job very, very exciting and challenging because we have such a really large and significant collection. So quickly, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Oregon. I'm a former Girl Scout myself. I was a Daisy through a junior. I unfortunately, my troop kind of ended right before we became cadets. But I loved my time in the Girl Scouts, so I'm very excited to be here presenting just because of that. I have an undergraduate degree in history from a small college in Oregon. And then I have a graduate degree in museum studies from the University of Washington here in Seattle. And that is kind of how I ended up at the Museum of Flight. I came here for graduate school, so for a master's degree program after a 4-year college degree. And during that time, we were required to do an internship. And I started interning at the Museum of Flight my first year of graduate school, and I ended up interning at the museum for 2 years. And after 2 years, it turned into a job. So I got lucky. And I've actually been at the museum now for almost 15 years. So we were given a few questions to answer about our jobs. And so I thought I'd kind of go through and talk a little bit about what I do and what I love about my job. And one of the questions was, what is something unique about my job at the Museum of Flight? Well, something that's unique about my job in general is that we get to see things that the public often doesn't. So here's a little fact. When you go to a museum, what you see on display is actually only about 5% of what the museum actually has in their collection. That's pretty standard across most museums. So if you've been to like a natural history museum and you see a wall full of bugs on display or butterflies or something like that, maybe there's 50 bugs in that case. That probably means that that museum has 5,000 bugs back in their collection storage, which I find very creepy because I don't like bugs. So that was maybe not the best example, but that kind of gives you an idea of just how little of what's in a museum's collection is actually on display in the galleries. So we help our exhibits department. I think is really about my job is I get to see a lot of things.
Hey, Amy.
It
keeps cutting in and out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, hopefully it stays that way. So I don't know where I cut out last, but what I was saying is that one of the unique things about my job is that I get to see a lot of things behind the scenes in our collection that the public doesn't always get to see. But one of the things that we love about our work is that we try to find new and creative ways to share what else is in our collection other than what you see in the galleries when you come visit. So through that work, we do things like digitize things, we scan them, we photograph them, we put them up online. We help people with research projects. I don't know if any of you participate in History Day, but we help a lot of students with History Day projects. So we find unique ways to share our collection with people that's not just coming and visiting us in the galleries. So this is another thing that I really love about my job is that we get to take things that are sometimes chaotic and disordered, you know, a box of loose photographs or papers, and we get to create order from that chaos, and we get to put it into acid-free folders and boxes so that they can be stored in perpetuity, but more importantly, so that future generations will still be able to enjoy these because we've taken really good care of them and we've made them accessible and we're caring for them in order to sustain the materials, make sure that they're still around and they don't fall apart and deteriorate. So I love this question about what am I passionate about in my life and how did it leak into your career? So I discovered in college that I was very, very passionate about history, and it led me directly to this career. So when I was in high school, I didn't care much for history. To be honest, my history classes were taught by the football coaches. The football coaches cared a lot more about the football team than they did about our history classes. Maybe that was just my school. I hope everyone had a better experience with their high school history classes, but I know I didn't. And I sort of thought of history as just a topic that everyone has to take, not that it's something that you might actually enjoy or pursue later. But when I got to college, I discovered really amazing classes taught by professors who were very, very passionate about history and brought that to life in new and exciting ways that I had never experienced before. And when I decided to start studying history, I really wanted to do something unique that allowed me to have hands-on experience with history and explore that further. So that is where my passion lies, and it led directly to my career because I get to spend every day looking at all of these historical artifacts and getting to preserve and explore history and then share that with people, which I absolutely love. That's one of my favorite things about my work. What is one of the coolest things I've done at my job? So this was by far, I have to say, one of the coolest things I've done. And I have been up close and personal with a lot of artifacts over the course of my career. But back in 2019, our museum was honored to have the Columbia command module from the Apollo 11 mission to the moon. So in 2019, it was the 50th anniversary of the first moon landing. And we had the command module that took the astronauts into space that allowed Neil Armstrong to walk out of the command module and to walk on the moon. And it was really truly an honor to have this in our museum. And because I got to work very closely, this was on loan to us from the Smithsonian. Because I got to work closely with the Smithsonian staff, I got to get up close and personal with this command module and got access that most people would not normally get as part of a condition report. We were basically inspecting it to make sure that it hadn't damaged in transit. And so I was able to get up really, really close to the surface of the command module and to see these little tiny details that would have been very difficult to see just from behind the railing. And I felt very honored because I got to work on the morning of the 50th anniversary itself. And I was in the gallery and I was all by myself with this command module, just me and the command module. And it really hit me what an important job I was doing safeguarding such a momentous artifact and on that actual anniversary. So that was by far one of the coolest things I've ever done. And I always think back as what an exciting moment and a moment that not many people can say that they've had. This is another really great question. So I came.
Amy, you're cutting in and out again. You were doing, it was so good at first. No.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you're going to switch to my computer. All right. Can everyone still hear me? Okay. So question is, what is it like to be a woman in my field? So I came to the Museum of Flight as someone who had a background in history and specifically museum studies and how to care for museum collections. So those skills that I came to the job with would have translated to, let's say I could have worked in an art museum, or I could have worked in a natural history museum or a history museum. I could have worked with a variety of artifacts. So I didn't come to my role with any sort of aviation background or aviation knowledge. And that is a very challenging thing in the subject matter of our museum. Aviation in general is a very masculine field historically. That's just how it's always been. I have this great picture up of these female pilots from the 1930s and 40s. And these ladies are a prime example of the challenges in the field. These ladies fought against a lot of people who said they had no business in a cockpit. They should not have been flying. They shouldn't have been anywhere near an airplane. They should have been in the kitchen instead. But these ladies, they fought that stereotype and they proved that they could fly and they could do so successfully. All four of them were airmail pilots. And then during the war, many of them ferried aircraft for the Boeing company. So they did a very, very important work. So aviation in general is a challenge as a woman, but in my field and what I do, I often encounter people who, because I'm not an aviation expert, aren't willing to listen to my opinions on how to take care of the collection. So it's always an opportunity. I always look at it as an education opportunity to let them know that I actually know the facts about how to take care of the artifacts themselves. It's very different to know how to fly a plane versus how to keep a plane in pristine condition in a museum environment and what that entails. So that's a challenge. It's always an uphill battle. I have conversations every other week, probably, you know, against that sort of stereotype that because I don't know anything about planes and I'm a woman, that I'm not the expert in the situation. So my advice is always to stick to your expertise, your education, and bring that to any conversation that you have when you face challenges, because people may think lesser of you as a woman or discount your education and your background. So that's all from me, and I apologize for the audio issues. So I will turn it over to you, Emily.
Thank you so much, Amy. So our collection is, I would say, one of the biggest parts of the museum. I mean, without the collection, there would be no museum. And I'm going to turn it over to Lena Lee, who is one of the people who creates events for people to interact at the museum and do fun things like that. So Lena, take it away.
Thank you so much. Amy, that was fantastic. We actually, as employees who just get started, have the privilege of jumping on a tour with Amy's team in collections to see a lot of what they do behind the scenes. And I absolutely recommend it. We have awesome footage online. If you look up the Museum of Flight, Curator on the Loose, for example, is super cool. Our podcasts are awesome. So if you want to learn more about our collection, check that out. But on my side, how many of you have attended any events at a museum before? Feel free to raise your hand, do a thumbs up, put your hands in the air. Did you know you could host things like that at a museum? I was checking out museums in your local area, like the Denver Museum of Nature and Science and the US Olympic and Paralympic Museum. And there's a lot of cool stuff out there. So today, like Emily mentioned, I'm here to talk to you about what I do as a private events manager. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so event planning at a museum. This is a career path I think you may not automatically think is available at a museum, and is quite different from what both Amy and Lyndsey do. We get to host events and experiences geared towards private groups of all ages and adults. These events range anywhere between having a small private dinner for two to a party attended by 2,500 guests. In short, we get to party with the planes and among history. And in a typical year, we host about 700 events. In a quick summation, my job is all about connecting with people and really providing a great service, leaving everlasting memories so that they can come back for more. And here are some fun photos of past events we've hosted. Going from the left to the right in a clockwise manner, we have had huge ceremonies in our great gallery where the Blackbird is located. We've had disco parties in the Aviation Pavilion. And that's really cool and has been a really fun way to have safe events outdoors. Here in Seattle, we've really focused more on outdoor events in the last couple of years. So we have a huge privilege of being able to have all of this space that we get to play with at the museum, 6 galleries worth of space. We have beautiful celebrations of couples here at the museum as well, weddings. We have had multi-piece, I think that's an 18-piece band right there, who've played at the museum, and some high caliber musicians here as well. So just lots of fun things. And you'll see a photo right there to the left-hand side. We have a stilt walker walking right by our shuttle trainer. Really cool stuff. In the last couple of years, like I mentioned, we've been pivoting to be able to host events, not just in person, but also virtually. So we've been able to host a lot of virtual tours in the last 2 years. And most recently, we did one for a small group in Germany to celebrate a birthday. So ultimately, we help create memories for people and are super honored to be the backdrop for people's celebrations and gatherings. I mean, how cool is it to experience the museum after dark? So here are some photos from one of my favorite events, Yuri's Night. And this is actually one of a handful of events that our particular department get to host at the museum. So these aren't private groups, but something that we get to use our own creativity to put something on. And this particular event, Yuri's Night, is where we get to celebrate Yuri Gagarin. He is the first cosmonaut in space. And Yuri's Night is essentially our space themed party where costumes are highly encouraged. So from the left to the right, again, in a clockwise manner, we had the amazing opportunity to have our board member, but also retired astronaut Dottie Metcalf here for a fireside chat. That was super cool. We were able to incorporate artists in our event, like what you see right there. Some really fun things, incorporating having our Destination Moon exhibit, like Amy mentioned here at the museum. We had a 6-story tall inflatable astronaut in our great gallery there. And that's just a fun photo to see. And because it's fun, funky, space themed, we had Star Wars characters and R2-D2s running around. So just really a fun mix. And I've shared a lot about cool events that we've been able to do, but in detail, a lot of what I really do on a day-to-day basis is communicating with people and going through a lot of their event details with them. These private events that we are able to work with our clients on are just a really great way to bring all kinds of visitors to the museum, whether they're visiting for the first time, where they don't know anything about what our museum has to offer, or they are longtime members. And I really love meeting people who have never visited before, who don't know much about aviation or space, and to be able to show them, hey, this is a really cool artifact here that we have that you probably just walked past. So just some fun things there. It's just really exciting to see that spark and excitement that a guest gets when they're talking to our docents, our living history characters, and just exploring the exhibits in general. So why do I like private events, and how did it all get started? Like I mentioned, it's all about creating memorable experiences. This job really allows me to apply my love of talking to all kinds of people and getting into the details. For me, it's really fun when you get to help plan memorable experiences with people who are celebrating a 100th birthday, their wedding, a holiday party, or a work anniversary. I also love just working at the museum and learning from other departments who do cool things, like Amy in the collections department, and their work in protecting and restoring our cool artifacts to Lyndsey's education department, where you'll definitely hear more later, but she does some really awesome stuff. When I was your age, I too was involved in Girl Scouts and even worked towards my Gold Award back in 2007. I knew getting involved in anything and everything I could would help me figure out what I wanted to do. And my career background primarily started out in planning fundraisers and luncheons for a nonprofit, which incidentally for me too, I had interned for them to start, and that turned into a job opportunity for me. I got my bachelor's degree at the University of San Diego. My apologies, University of California, San Diego, different college, in international studies and econ. And a lot of the extracurricular activities I did during college too catapulted me into this event planning passion of mine, which really led into working in all things entertainment, organizing holiday parties and summer picnics, and all of the fun activities that go along with it. From there, I decided I wanted to explore more of what it's like to work on the venue side of things. Not to mention, I just love museums in general. So that's where I am today. So the event industry is just a whole variety of careers to explore. I would recommend starting off by volunteering or working for a museum or major attraction. This allows you to practice customer service, which is useful for any career, in my opinion. And it also allows you to work at a cool place. Some of you may already be working on your Gold Award, working on a school dance committee, or planning birthday parties at home. Those are all really super good ways to find out what you enjoy doing and if you like event planning. Jobs in the event planning and hospitality industry, like I mentioned, vary widely. And for me, which is different from the collections department, it is predominantly female, generally about a 60 to 40% kind of percentage there. Besides working for a museum, there are so many other opportunities, whether it's working at a corporate company like Microsoft or Southwest Airlines, where they have a team of event planners, a hotel, a small events and catering company, or a nonprofit, kind of like what Katie does with you all at Girl Scouts. These kind of skills can also help you find a career in project management or other roles in the corporate or tech industry as well. There are just so many different opportunities to explore. So with that, that's it for me. Feel free to type your questions in the chat box, but I will pass it on over to Emily. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. That was so wonderful. So the next section that we're going to show you is the education side of things. So we've shown you kind of the base of the museum, our actual collection. We've shown you kind of the step up, I'd say, of just coming into the museum with private events and coming and partying at our museum and things like that. So now let's check out what Lyndsey does in education.
Oh, thank you, Emily, and Lena and Amy. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and what it means to really work in the museum for you. So awesome. Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Lyndsey, and I am an educator. I am not a coordinator or even a supervisor. I am someone that is a little bit more ground level. But I've worked here for almost 5 years, or 4 years. Sorry, it's been a while. I don't know how many years now. And it's been really exciting, but it was kind of an interesting road to get here. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kind of, I'm taking a little different tact than my colleagues in that I'm going to start a little bit with my background before I get to the fun of what I get to do here at the Museum of Flight. So here's kind of my intro slide, and let me make sure that that is all the way up there. There we go. So that is me. And hopefully, obviously, you can kind of tell that that's me. The picture that you're seeing here is a really fun event. That is something that Lena took part of. It was called Nose Art After Dark. And it was about the nose art on different aircraft in World War II and or up to World War II. And so our curator, was Matthew Burchett, or is, he's still our senior curator. And they wanted an influence of, you know, someone coming in. And so this is where education is really fun. And so little starting at the end kind of thing. So kind of ending there. So let's take a look at my beginning. Ooh. All right. Well, I kind of put my beginning starting with kind of, you know, after high school, I did the usual thing. You went to your 4-year college. For myself, that was something called the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. And it is home of the Gooey Ducks. Evergreen is an interesting college where they are kind of like the anti-college. And that's kind of why I liked it. I tend to be a little bit different and in just about everything that I do. And so it worked for me. And this was a great school because it used evaluations and not a grade point system. And it was still a state college. So I still got fully accredited, you know, 4-year degree, but it was a little bit different. So there they taught us a lot of personal responsibility about getting your work in. You can't just take a test and pass the class. And so I kind of liked that I got that background a little bit early. But in between kind of me doing college for the first time, which is my 4-year degree, I did a few things in between, but did end up attending the University of Washington. I didn't do their 1-year program. They actually have a certificate in museum studies, which is about 3/4 long. So it's about a year, but you come away with a certificate and not a master's degree. But it kind of gives you a really quick overview of what it is to work in a museum. It gave me the basics of just what it means. There's a lot that goes on inside of a museum. And so this really prepared me pretty well. I will say though, that I did not graduate. So I don't technically have that certificate. But know that that's part of the process. Sometimes you start things and for whatever reason, there were reasons that I couldn't finish that final 3rd quarter. But I did attend the first 2. And but that's life, it happens. But never let that stop you from going after what you want. So I think this next slide kind of fills in that middle ground here. So after my first 4 years at college, I had some family responsibilities, so I didn't go straight into a career. It was kind of, I took a lot of art history classes, and so I ended up graduating with a degree in art history, and that was my bachelor's degree. So then I went on, I knew that teaching was something I really wanted to do. I've always had a heart for it. So I went in and did preschool. So a lot of early child learning, early child education. There's a program here called STARS, and you get little certificates and you take ongoing early child education classes and you get that. So I did that for almost 10 years. And during that time, I did some summer camps, art summer camps, and then the art of the play. I can't seem to escape that. I love playing and dressing up and being characters, and we'll get to that in a second. But really, a lot of this time taught me a lot of things. I learned a lot of skills from learning how to facilitate programs to writing programs and at least getting those basics in there. And I had some not so fun jobs. Being an adult can be hard. It's very different when you leave your parents' house or your guardian or whoever's watching you and you're finally out there on your own. It's a little bit different. Sometimes you have to compromise on a few things. So I did things like house cleaning and cleaning at a movie theater. although I did like working at the floral shop. That was more fun art in a different form. So I would say that all of these jobs and programs that I did really added to my repertoire of what I could do. You know, it was really understanding working with children from a young age. And that will become very important for the job that I eventually got at the Museum of Flight. So after doing all of this, I was like, I really want to do something. What do I want to do? So I put it all together. You know, so I'm about 35 at this point. So I may look really young, but I am not. So it can take a long time before you figure out what you want to do. And that is also okay. It's totally fine. Everyone has their own timeline, their own way that they're going to do things. So I would say the one thing to save yourself some trouble is never compare yourself to how someone else is doing. Know that what you are doing for yourself is always going to be the best. So these all led me to going back to the Museum of Flight and starting this museum. It's called Museum Studies Certificate. And so again, I did not quite get it, but I do put it on there because I worked towards it and I feel like I could have earned it. So after that, I was able to find out through that program that the Museum of Flight was having this open job fair. And I was able to meet someone called Emily. And she was one of the first people I met up there. And so my experiences, I got in on an interview and I joined doing some summer camps. And so I got to do that for 1 year as a camp lead. And it was really fun. You get to work with kids, you get to, this is where they're coming into the museum and teaching science content. And I will bring this point back to Amy where, where she was kind of saying that, it was daunting getting into a field that is aerospace or aviation. And I was right there with her because I was like, oh, science is not for me. Aerospace is not for me. But it turned out it is. And I just have had a absolute passion for working here. And how that works is, basically you find something to connect with. I connected with characters, the people behind the stories and the artifacts that we have. And so I get to do lots of different things within the education department. It's a very broad section that is everything from doing public education events to doing living history, which you can see here. It's definitely teaching. There is the high school students that you're seeing there. We're part of a program that we don't have currently anymore. It was called MAP, Museum Apprenticeship Program. And where I got to mentor high school students that were interested in aviation or just learning, and they could get credit towards their, because up here you have to have a certain amount of volunteer hours to get your high school diploma. So this was a way for students to do that. And that's one way museums are also really awesome, is if you have an education or a volunteer need, most museums will be like, please come on in. We want you to volunteer. And those are great opportunities. I think Lena said that volunteering is a great way to get involved. If you think after hearing this that museums might just be more fun than you thought they were, they are a great, great place to learn and to be a part of, because you get to see those artifacts. You get to see these programs sometimes behind the scenes, and those are awesome. So I would ask you a question is, which one would you rather do, teaching or doing living history? Well, I get to do it both. And so I'm going to actually share a little video with you. So I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to bring you to a little video that I got to help produce in partnership with my other colleagues in the education department. So you can kind of see where all of it comes together. This is where education kind of meets with all the other departments. We meet with archives, we meet with the librarians, we meet with private events to get information, to give information, to work together. So this event is really kind of fun, and it is for Girl Scouts, and that is really exciting. I never got to be a Girl Scout. I think I would have had a lot of fun with it. But really this opportunity that you have to be exposed to all the different careers that you could go into and things is just absolutely mind-blowing. I would have loved that. So here, let me get to that video. Let me do the screen share one more time. See if I can get it to come up. All right, it's only going to take a few minutes. So this is Claire, and this is our Playing the Past program. This is about becoming a 1940s woman's Air Force service pilot. Here we are having some fun with some pretending of going back in time, and Claire here is in the present time, where she will be talking to me, who is playing a character called Molly Moxie, who is a pilot from the 1940s. So let's go ahead and see how that kind of all comes together, so you get a really good idea of what we get to do.
Hey, Lyndsey, I don't know if you shared your sound.
Oh, so how do I do that?
When you're sharing your screen, there's a little button.
Share sound, got it. All right, thank you so much. Oh, this is why we have moderators, because they keep us on straight and narrow. All right, let's go ahead. Oops, this is going to play.
Than I thought. This link isn't as strong. I'm going to keep trying. Molly Foxy, can you hear me?
Claire, yes, I can hear you. This newfangled machine has me at my wit's end. Oh,
Excellent. I have your special recruits for you, and they are ready for your special mission that you have planned for them today.
thank you, Claire. Welcome, recruits. Thank you for joining me today. I am Molly Moxie, and I'll be your flight instructor. Are you ready with your flight plan and terminal area chart? Or as we aviators call it, your TAC. If not, please take some time to make sure you have those in front of you.
All right, I'll stop sharing that. So, one could ask me, what is my most favorite part of my job? And really, it's coming up with characters and being able to showcase them. And in this case, it was videos for Girl Scouts. We have a few of them, but that's not the only time I get to play living history. Sometimes during those private events that we have, they will want a living history character. So whether they want a soldier from Vietnam, or whether they want a WASP pilot, or any variation, we have quite a few characters and a whole closet full of awesome costumes that are not necessarily in the collection that Amy has. In fact, these are artifacts that are either not accessioned, so that means it's not accepted into our collection because we have too many of, or whether it's just something we have a lot of. So it goes into what we call our costume closet, and I get to use them or others as they want to. And so bringing those characters to life it's a lot of fun, and it certainly wouldn't work without everyone in the museum. I mean, I have to collaborate with AV services. I've got to collaborate with security. We talk with not only our education, but other people in education. We're sending things out to private events like, can you take a look at this? And what do you notice? And that's a really big thing for us, is to really work together. So education is kind of like this one area that kind of unites the whole museum in a way. And we try to honor everyone's area and that kind of thing. But personally, I think I have the most fun because I absolutely enjoy what I do. Now, I think there was a few more things that I want to share real quick. Oops. Love it when you click the wrong button. So going back to my PowerPoint, and finally towards the end here. So So kind of like this last is what I get to do. I get to collaborate with departments. I also get to create programs from scratch. I get a lot of creative freedom so long as everything is factual. You can't just make things up that way. But making up a character like Molly Moxie that's based off of, real facts, those I can make. And that is so much fun. And I get to meet amazing individuals. We've met Dottie Metcalf, Buzz Aldrin's been here. I got to hold and host an author chat with Kate Landick, who wrote a book called The Women with Silver Wings. And that was about the WASP. Teaching Girl Scouts, you guys are my favorite audience. Always great energy, and just always love when I can get in front of y'all. So that's kind of, what education is like. We're very busy. And I would say as a woman in this position, I would say that teaching in general is considered to be more of a female job, but here working at the museum where you're working with the science content as well as the creative fun, you do and can run into people that like Amy has run into, where they will challenge what you know and how much you know. And oftentimes being a female does not help you with that. And I choose to be kind of quiet about it, so like, I'm like, well, that's one way of looking at it, or whatever. But yeah, I can definitely run into that. But just stay true to yourself and just know what you know. Just, what the fact is. You don't have to prove it to anybody because they're not going to listen anyway. So just stick to what you know. Don't try to overdo. I've done that and it always gets you in trouble. So yeah. So thank you. I'm not sure it was quite as organized. And then my last is that if you have any questions for me, if you want to reach out, or if you want to schedule a program, you can get a hold of me at Weinbach at museumofflight.org. But I'm sure you will have a bunch of that information. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lyndsey. And Amy and Lena, it was, for all of you who don't know, we all work in very different areas of the museum. And so coming together to hear what each other have, where we are, how we've grown, has been really, really amazing. So Katie, thank you for giving us this opportunity. I'm going to pass it back to you.
Great. And I actually have some questions. So Amy, do you ever get asked by film studios for things that are in your archives that they might say, oh my gosh, we need something that's flight that's from the past, and they call you and say, hey, do you have a fill in the blank?
We do. We get so we have a dedicated research center, so we're available, to make our public available to the or make our collection accessible to the public. Sorry. And so we get all kinds of researchers, from students to movie makers. And so we've been contacted about everything that you might imagine. A lot of photographs. People are sometimes doing research work to kind of investigate things about. One of my favorite requests that we ever received was that they wanted to see a manual for a Boeing 314, which was a flying boat. And they were working on a murder mystery, and they needed this manual because it would show them where all the different compartments were inside the airplane. And they wanted to know where they could stash the murder weapon.
Wow.
One of my favorite requests of all time, because it was just, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is so amazing. So yeah, we do get a lot of requests we've had them from Hollywood, a lot of documentary filmmakers in particular. So it's always exciting to work with those groups. I'd say probably our most popular thing that we have been contacted about is information about our Aero car, which is a flying car.
Oh, I bet. Oh, that's neat. Okay, Lena, what is the most off the wall kind of event that you've hosted? I'm throwing, you guys didn't get these prepared questions, because it just seemed like what you were talking about events. So it's like, oh my gosh, you could do some crazy fun stuff.
We have been able to do some crazy fun stuff, all the while keeping the collection safe, of course. The first event that comes to mind is actually something that was really born out of COVID and not being able to do a lot of big in-person events. And while it's not super crazy, it was really cool. And what it was that we had the Seattle Opera here at the museum. And at the time, we were all still very much about staying masked and having no sort of physical audio. I'm not thinking of the right word right now, but basically, we didn't want to be unmasked while singing, essentially. We as in the singers, not me, of course. And so we had the opera singers in the museum in the evenings with their audio and opera playing throughout the great gallery we have here, and just seeing them perform. It was so haunting at 11 p.m. at night, just so cool. They live streamed this performance and we were able to tune in to it when it premiered. And just something really, really cool that we were able to do despite not being able to have these on-site in-person events.
Right. And all sort of creative. You had to be creative with what's handed to you for events during a time when there's lockdown. And what can we do? Yeah, think outside the box. All right, Lyndsey, favorite character, favorite historical, what did you call it again? The historical character?
The living history.
Living
characters.
history. That's the word. That's what I mean.
Yes, I've played quite a few characters over the years, everywhere. Let's see, I've played Judith Berg. I've played Nancy Harkness Love, who is the co-founder of the WASP. And upcoming, I'm going to be playing Jackie Cochran, who is the other co-founder of the WASP. But God, I think my favorite was being able to create my own character, Molly Moxie.
Yeah.
And kind of my reasoning behind that is I used to do it as Nancy Harkness, but I felt because I was interpreting her even through biographies and such, that coming on it as pretending to be her was a little bit too much. And so getting to create that character and then feeling like I had a little bit more freedom to use all the information from the 1940s to create, this persona that is truly a lot of fun, as hopefully you could see on the video. I mean, gosh, our AV service team just was absolutely incredible these past couple of years to do that kind of stuff. But certainly to a scale and scope I never thought of. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very fun to work with all of you. So in Girl Scouts, do you have any questions? You can put in the chat, or you can unmute or whatnot. Or we can always, I can get the email addresses, and you can always contact these women and ask more questions if you don't want to ask now. Call me. I love it. All right, well, I'm just going to share my screen once more. Actually, let me just.
Oh, it looks like I saw a question in there for living history again. What was?
How do you make up a character? How do you create a character?
Ooh, basically you start with a historical character, so where you can research actual facts. And so, birth, death, life, what they liked, what they didn't like, and what their major sort of contribution was. And then you get started from there. But I always get so interested in my characters, I end up reading their biographies. And I was never someone who read those types of books, but when you really are interested in someone and what they've done, it's just like, oh my gosh, and you just keep getting more and more excited. And so then you can add layers to your characters, find out what they would wear. This is where you can contact Amy in archives or collections and just be like, hey, do you have anything? Can we use this? And, and so it's really, yeah, there's a lot of steps, but starting with the facts are always the best place to start.
Right. Thank you. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again. So Girl Scouts, we have a few more days this contest called Future Me. So you can do a short video or write a short, doesn't have to be an essay length, but a short description of how you see your future self. And there's been on social media and email communications about this contest where your caregiver can find the link for you to submit it. But basically, we're going to pick 2 winners, one from the kindergarten through 5th grade Girl Scout and one from 6th through 12th random pick. And so 2 girls will be getting $529 into a college invest savings plan. And so I kind of think of it as like, wow, kind of scholarship money, but you put it in now and it's earning interest on it that's tax-free. So a real great offer. So get your caregiver to find that link and we can learn about your future self. And we have our Inspiring Futures patch. So if you haven't attended one of these Inspiring Futures yet, when you fill out a survey that I'll be sending out, you can get the main patch that's the center there. And then the different rockers are around the side, depending on which Inspiring Futures you're attending. So this one you'll earn the life skills because you're learning project management, event planning, just all of that that's more of a life skill than it falls under STEM, entrepreneurship, or outdoors, obviously. So that is that one. And I just, wanted to thank Girl Scouts of Colorado and College Invest, our main sponsor, for hosting Inspiring Futures. And definitely want to thank our guests that joined us tonight. It was such a pleasure to meet all of you. And I love all your stories about your paths to what got you where you are today. And hopefully some of our Girl Scouts will visit your Playing the Past badge. I know that I've promoted it within Girl Scouts of Colorado. That's what led me to meeting Emily. So, maybe your future will cross with some Girl Scouts of Colorado a little bit more beyond Inspiring Futures.
Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you, Girl Scouts.
Thank you for having us.
We'll see you soon.
No problem. Any last questions, girls? Athena, do you have any last questions or just want to say goodbye and thank you?
Well, I will share this because this is really exciting then. You are.
It's always that awkward.
Did you hear a question? No, okay, I thought I heard one. Okay. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.